Alright, so this video I'm going to go over chapter 5 in the Adobe Photoshop CC book, and this one deals with quick fixes. And not every picture needs a lot of work, but some might need some small improvements. So the first one we're going to do is improve on a snapshot, which we want to go ahead and go up to Files here and Browse in Bridge. And you can see that bridge automatically opens where I was last time. I was actually on the lessons here. So lesson 5, I'm going to open that up and I'm going to get the red eye start here image. And so that's the first image that we're going to bring in. I'm going to go ahead and open that up a little bit so that you can see a little better here. So what you got to do is click on the healing brush and then go down to red eye tool. Now the red eye tool is fairly simple to use. There are some standard things that the book tells you to put in, like the darkening amount, 62% of how dark it's going to be. You know, you can go 100%, that gives it like almost a pure black. The pupil size, it just depends on how big it is. Right here we've got about 23% of the pupil is what it says, and that's what the book figures. But every time when you click on it, you would probably just adjust that if you were doing your own image here. So what I'm going to do is, once these two things are set, which is set 23 and 62, the darkening amount 62, pupil size 23, I'm just going to bring my little crosshairs right over the red eye and click on that, and you'll see that immediately the red eye disappears. And I'm going to click over here and immediately the red eye disappears here. Now the red eye happens when we take a photograph of somebody indoors with a on-camera flash most of the time. And the reason for that is that the flash actually reflects off the back of the eyeball, which is filled with a bunch of blood vessels, and so that we see that red in the eye because our iris is wide open, and so that we see that reflection off there. And that's how they get the red eye. And you get that in animals, people, just about anything with you know, an eyeball. So the other thing that we want to do with this picture in the book is we want to brighten it up a little bit and make some adjustments. And to do that, we're actually going to use an adjustment layer, and we're going to use the curves here. And I'm going to click on the curves here, and you see that the curve comes up in this point right here, and we have a little tag over here that says auto. Now whenever you have a picture, you can click on that right away just to see what it does, and the auto is going to analyze the picture and then figure out the best curve for that to make that picture look good. And that's what the automatic correction does, and so it brightens up this image here. So the other thing that you can do in this particular window here for the curves is that you have presets here, and you can go to presets. So we can go to the lighten RGB here, and we can click on that, and you'll notice that the picture has changed and the curve has changed. Now the difference between the two is that a preset is set in there with specific numbers and a specific setting, and it's always going to be that exact setting. No matter what the picture is, it's always going to be that setting. Whereas the auto adjustment, when you click on that, is going to evaluate the picture and go ahead and set it up so that it selects what is the proper exposure. Now the last thing you have in the curves that makes it a little bit easy to work with, and let me just reset everything here, is this little finger here with the two arrows up and down. When you click on that, you can go on a certain spot, and I'm right clicking or left clicking on my mouse right now and drag it up and down, and you see that I can darken the image and I can lighten the image. You notice that it picks a certain spot on your curve, and that's basically the lightness here. Now notice when I go over here and I click and I go down, notice that that spot is much higher up on the curve there because that's a lighter area than what was here. And again, let me just get rid of all these because it's not what we want. If I click on the eyeball right here, which is the lightest, you notice that the curve now moves up quite a bit. Or our selection of the curve moves up quite a bit up here towards the top because I'm clicking on the whitest part of the image. So bottom line is that we're going to just go ahead and click on the auto again. Let auto take care of this particular one because that works on this picture. But those are 3 ways to go ahead and set this image up to make it look the way that you want it. Now the book again has you flatten the image, which you can most definitely do. And to flatten it, you would go up to layers here, go down to flatten image, and you click on that, and you'll notice that your curve layer gets blended in. with the background layer, with the image, and now they all become one. Okay, so with this red eye image open, we're going to do a little bit of facial fixing, I guess you would call it. Not really sure exactly what the book uses for it, but we're going to do some things to this young lady's face, although I don't think she needs anything done, but nonetheless, we are going to do it. So we're going to go up to filters here at the top and come down to what's called liquify. Now, liquify is a filter that allows you to make adjustments on a picture. And so in this particular picture, whenever you have a person in there, it has a facial aware liquify, which you can open up here. And you see that it has some eyes, nose, mouth, and face shape here. And by moving these sliders, we can adjust the way that it looks. So if I go down to the jawline, if you want your jawline, you can see I can increase it or decrease it in some. So you can make some changes here. Now, facial aware tools only go a certain distance because they're made not to go out of proportion, although, you know, if you slide them all over, they do look somewhat out of proportion. You can come over here and use these tools, which we're not going to deal with in this particular lesson, just on the facial fixes here. The other thing too is that when this is selected, you can lock these things together, like eye size, eye height, eye width, eye tilt. When you click on this button here, that means that whatever you do on the one eye is transferred over to the other one. So if we make one eye big, they both get big, they both get small, and it's the same. But if you want, you can make one a little bit bigger, one a little bit smaller or larger, you know, separately. Now for this one, we want to enter for eye size and eye height. We're going to go and put 32 for eye size, and I'm going to lock these together because we want them to be on both. And I'll put 32 here, and then it doesn't matter which one you go in on these. You know, they're locked together, so they'll both do the same thing. And backspace and put 10. You know, we have the preview here showing, and you can see what's going on with her face immediately in the image here. So if I click off the preview, you can see that her eyes get smaller. So right now they're both bigger and higher. All right, we're going to make the mouth section expand a little bit, so we're going to go down here to mouth here, and enter 5 for the smile and 9 for the height here. So again, you can slide this over to 5, you know, if you'd like. It takes a little bit more work. 5 seems to be a tough number for some reason. And then our mouth height, we're going to make that about a 9 here. And again, look at if you're staring at her mouth, you're going to see that that changes just a little bit. There's not too much change, but just a little bit. You could actually, you know, make that smile, you know, actually go up, or make her sad if we go this way. So we can change the way they look. So keep that in mind when you're looking at pictures of people. You know, if they appear to be one way or the other, you know, that could have easily been changed in Photoshop, as we're finding out right now. So face shape can be also done, and here we can, in the jawline, we can put 50 in that, and the face width, we can go ahead and put, well, let's put 50 in that and 40 in the jawline. My mistake here. Again, the preview on and off shows you the difference in all of this that we've made. We've actually made her face a little bit wider and everything else a little bit bigger. Again, like I said, you know, the liquify, you can really mess with this thing and really mess up somebody's face pretty bad, or change the way. And not all people are going to appreciate you changing the way that their face looks. So make sure that if you're doing it for a client or you're doing it for somebody else, okay, so the next thing we're going to open up a picture of an egret so that we can adjust that around a little bit. So I'm going to go up here to Browse and Bridge. Here we can look at the pictures here. So I'm going to hit on the egret start, and you see that this egret picture has everything is sharp all around the egret here, the snowy egret. And on the end photograph, we can see that everything is out of focus around the egret, and just the egret is in focus, even the reflection is slightly out of focus. So what I want to do is I actually don't want to open this up in Bridge here, so I'm just going to reduce Bridge on down. and I'm going to come up to Photoshop file. Make sure you click on Photoshop again so that you go back to the Photoshop file and go up to File and then Open as a Smart Object. So now I can go over to the same location. I'll go to Desktop here and go to Lessons and lesson number 5, and I want to hit on the egret start image, which says right here, and I'm going to go ahead and press Open. And you see that the image opened and it has this little tag down in the corner right here. That means that it's a smart object. And we want a smart object because we're going to make some adjustments, and then we're going to change those adjustments. And by having it as a smart object, we can make changes to the filters. So that's important when you're doing a filter, you're not sure exactly how it's going to look. You want to be able to make changes to it later on, or add or subtract to it. So that's what we're going to do with this. First thing I want to do on this image here is save as. So we're going to save it as something else. Now I'm going to go ahead and save it in the same spot here. And lesson number 5. So egret, and I'm going to put it as working 1. I'm going to save it like I said in the same spot underneath lesson 5 and click OK. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the filter gallery, blur gallery, iris blur. So what happens is you get this ring around here that allows you to have a center that is in focus. Now if I grab the center of this ring, I can move it up here, and I want to locate this center dot on the bottom of the egret right there. So this part is sharp, and then I want to adjust my ring around here, and this is the amount of focus edge that I have here. And you notice that as I let go of that all of them are working together, and you see that it feathers out that edge there. So I'm going to bring that right on top of the bird there. I'm going to actually move this one in some so that's a little bit closer. Make a little adjustment here. Move this in a little bit closer so that it is just around the bird itself. Alrighty. You've gotten a little bit carried away with this front one here. Move that on over. So again, just make these adjustments until it looks about right to you. I'm going to have it maybe not feather as much. There we go. So it's feathering out right along there. So everything inside here, all the bird is sharp, stacked sharp. Now I'm also pressing down on my keyboard, my left and right arrow, and you can see that I'm moving it left here when I click and moving it right there. So you can make fine adjustments using the keyboard here with this particular filter. The filter, I want it to be blurred out at about 15. Well, that's at 15. I want it to be blurred out at about 5. I just want a shallow blur around it. I didn't want it to be as noticeable as it was. And I'm going to go ahead and accept that. Press OK and accept that blur. So you can see now that we have the egret that we start from, and you can see that we have layers that are a smart filter, and a blur gallery is one of the smart filters that are on this layer here. Now this layer is kind of subtle. I may look at this and think, I really want to do something else with this. I don't want it to be that subtle. Let me get rid of these little dots around here so I can look at those. Around the edge of the picture is what I got rid of because I'm on the move tool here, where it says show transform controls. You have that on. You have the transform controls if you need them. I'm not using them right now, so I'm just going to turn them off so that we don't have that interfering with our picture. So I want to increase the blur a little bit around this egret. I like where it's at, but I just want to increase it. So I'm going to click on the blur gallery here, and you see that it goes right back to my blur gallery filter, and right back to exactly where I was. And now I can move this around. I can change anything I want to change, and it hasn't harmed the picture at all. It hasn't changed any of the pixels. It's basically made that blur and added it to that, but then I can always go back and adjust that or take the blur off completely at any time, even after I save it, if it's a smart object. We're just going to increase this blur up to about 6 pixels, I think. And that's what the book tells me to do, so that's what I'm going to do. And press OK. So now that we have our bird with our blur in here, we're going to go ahead and save that file. And just come down to save and click on that. It's automatically going to save it as egret working. into my folder. So I have that one done. And your book does cover other blurs that you can use, and there are a lot of different blurs that you can work on in this book, and I would recommend that you check that out. I'm not going to go through that on this video, but there are a lot of things that you can do with different blur filters in Photoshop, which can really enhance the image quite a bit. So next I want to browse in Bridge to look at a panoramic. We're going to create a panoramic. So I'll go down and click on Bridge here, bring that back up. And in my lesson files here, I want to go over and look at the panoramic right here. So this is what we're going to create. And this panoramic is created from a number of different images taken one at a time. One here, 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 and here, like that. To do that, you want to be in Photoshop, go down to File, and go down to Automate, and go down to Photo Merge, and click on that. Browse, and we're going to open up those images, and do that in Photo Merge. So click on the Browse button here, and I'm going to go to Files for Panoramic, and I just clicked on my mouse and held it down and selected all 4 of those images, and I'll click Open. And so now all 4 of them are here within our layout. And for this particular one, the book recommends that you do perspective. Now sometimes cylindrical and spherical, if I can say the word, will work for you. But today we're going to try perspective. Sometimes auto works too, but auto I generally use for a different thing. Most of the time on Photo Merges for panoramic, perspective is the one that I select also. Now down at the bottom we want to blend the images together. Any vignetting, we want to remove that around the edges. Geometric distortion correction, which is going to help the pictures blend together better and not be out of alignment. And content aware fill transparent areas. So sometimes when you put the images together, one's higher or lower than the other, and so you want to fill that in with content aware. So it's going to try and fill all of that in as best as it can. And we click OK. And then it's just a matter of how long it takes for your picture to come up. Now sometimes it takes a little bit of work because depending on how big the picture is and how many images you have, so it can require some processing power. So that will just we just have to wait here and see just how long. Now I'm showing it to you in real time on my particular computer, and we can see that these images are starting to come in here, and we'll see exactly what it does. So these are the images that come across. Now you can see that we have a couple different things selected here, and I'm just going to turn off this eyeball on the merged part up at the top here to show you that all of this right here, all this clear transparent area and down here along these edges are filled in by our selection so that we have the content aware, and that helps fill all of that in. Once we have this image, we can go ahead and go up to select, and deselect, or Command D to deselect all of the images here. And then in this particular one, it's a good idea to flatten the image before you do anything else, because it's a lot of stuff going on here. Now I'll just show you each individual image as it comes across. So the first one is right there, and it's blended into this section here, and then this section. And now the whole Photoshop method is blending it in and aligning everything, so it gives you the best blend without overlapping. You can see that even the clouds look good in this picture. And then finally our last part of our image here. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to layers and flatten this image down. So we're going to take all of these over here, all of these layers, and we're going to make them into one layer, which is much smaller and much easier to work with as a one layer. What we want to do is it's a little bit dark, so we want to go ahead and brighten this up a little bit. On this particular one, we're going to use something different. Now last time we used curves to brighten up the image. This time we're going to click on the adjustment panel right up here, and if you don't have adjustment, go to Windows and go down and click on adjustments right there, and that panel will appear over here. And we're going to go to levels. Now notice that when I keep my mouse on it, it tells me what that one is. So we want to click on levels, and we placed a layer above it. That's a levels layer. And in here we have three different eyedroppers. So this one here is sample image set black point. This is the set at gray point, and this is the set white. So what that means is that when you click on this and you bring this out here, this eyedropper, you're going to put it on a spot that you believe should be pure white. Now obviously this is not pure white over here, but part of this cloud here up here looks very much pure white. So I'm going to click on that, and you see that it brightened up the image a little bit. Now I'll click on and off. So this is before and this is after, and while it's not a tremendous amount, it is enough to brighten up the image and give it just that little bit of pop. The sky gets a little bit bluer, the image is a little bit brighter, and you know, makes it nicer. So that is basically it as far as creating a panoramic. So again, I'm gonna go up to File, I'm gonna go to Save As, and right now I'm in my files for the panoramic. I want to go back to lesson 5 here, and I want to save this as working panoramic, if it will let me. Oops, I gotta highlight that. And you know, I could save it as a Photoshop, I could save it as a JPEG, whatever I want to do. I'm going to save it as JPEG, that way it makes it a little bit smaller, and then show you how this JPEG looks here. It'll ask for the quality. 8 to 12 is high quality, so that's all you basically need. The higher, the larger the file. So that really is basically how simple it is to create a panoramic in Photoshop. Now, taking the pictures of the panoramic, of course, is a whole different subject, but I do have some videos on that. You might want to check them out right up here. But other than that, that's creating a panoramic. So now we're going to move on to filling empty areas with cropping. Alright, so this panoramic looks pretty good, except there is, you know, a missing pole here. Let me get more of an aerial one that you can see. There's a missing rail here. See how that blends in over here, and we got some blending going on here, and the horizon is not level, so we're going to use our crop tool to make some adjustments. But before we do that, we want to flatten this image. Now make sure that the background is clicked on, that you have that layer clicked on. That's very important. And then we're going to go up to layers and flatten image, and that way it flattens it to the background, not to the layers. So once that's flattened here, I'm going to go ahead and open up my crop tool, which is right up here, this crop tool, and I want to click on the straighten button here, and I want to make sure that this content aware is clicked on, and that's important too. With my straighten, what I'm going to do is go on the horizon here and click and then hold my mouse down. You see you get this little string that comes across, and I'm going to drag it across over to here, and you can see that it's telling you it's minus 1.2 degrees off. So when I let go of it, you're going to see it's going to straighten that image. You're also going to see that we have some white up here and down here, open areas here. Now, while I'm still in my crop tool here, notice that my straighten button automatically clicked off. I'm just going to grab anywhere inside this image and drag it down until I get rid of those fuzzy looking rails there. Now I don't mind the solid rail coming off the picture here, but I don't want the fuzzy in that I had before. And with that cropped at that position, I have a lot of opening up here. Now watch what's going to happen with this content aware. When I click on this or press enter, it's going to go ahead and crop to that, and it's going to go ahead and fill in with content aware along the top. And in this particular image, it probably is going to come out quite nice, which it does. The clouds blend together really well up there. We have a nice solid fence post there, and a rail I should say, and coming across there, so that all looks really good. So then all I want to do now is go up to my file, click on file, and I'm going to go ahead and save as. And again, I'm in lesson 5, and I want to save it as a working panoramic. And again, I'm going to change this to Photoshop, just to not to change it from Photoshop to JPEG, to make a little bit smaller image. Click OK and replace, and OK. And so now I have a finished panoramic here. Okay, so to correct the image distortion, we need to open up that image. So I'm going to go back to my bridge, and right here we have the columns pictures. We got the start, and let me click on the start here, and you see that that's quite distorted there. And the end image, when we click over there, you see that everything is straightened up. So we're going to start with the column start, and I'm just going to go ahead and double click on that to open it in Photoshop here. Okay, so once we've opened this up, what I want to do first is I want to go up to File, and I'm going to click off my crop tool that I had on last time, and go up to File and go down to Save As, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as working. So again, right in there. And go ahead and save it, and that way I have a copy in there that I'm working on, not changing the original file. So from here I'm going to go up to Filter and go down to Lens Correction right there and click on that, and we get our Lens Correction dialog box open here. Now down at the bottom here, you want to make sure that Show Grid is on. If it wasn't on when you came in here, you want to make sure that it is on. We do want the preview to be clicked on also, but mainly the Show Grid here. And we do have a couple things up here. We have geometric distortion, chromatic aberration, and vignetting on our corrections here. And this one is set up on geometric distortions here, which is what we want to correct. And you can actually click your camera make and click the model and then click the lens used, and it will automatically do its best to correct any distortion that is known in those particular cameras and lens combinations. But in this case, we want to make sure that we have auto scale image right here when correcting the distortion, and we want to make sure that the edges have a transparency to them. Alright, so I'm going to click on the custom tab over here now, and we want to basically remove the distortion here. And by dragging this back and forth, you see that we're sort of pushing in the image here, and we can also go the opposite way over here and even make it more distorted outwards, as you can see right there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this on over to about 52, which is really hard to get with my mouse, so I'm just going to type it in, especially when your computer is not going as fast as it could. And you can see that we look pretty good right here right now. I think that you know, we got all the distortion out and the image looks good. So once this looks good, go ahead and click OK, and it's going to save that, and you see that we come back here and it saved it to exactly the way that we want it. We got the, you know, this looks much more stable now than it did before. And I'm going to go ahead and go up to File now and just save. I don't have to save as, I can save because I've already named it my working PSD. And now the image is corrected. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work on a couple images to extend depth of field. So again, going to Bridge, on over here to, let's see what images. We have this glass sitting on the beach. You notice that we have maximum depth of field, and then we have our start image, which the glass is out of focus, but the background is extended or in focus. So we're going to go ahead and double click on that, and that's the one that we're going to look at. Open it up here in Photoshop, and we have the beach and the glass, which tells you which one's in focus. So let me open these up so you can see them. So you can see that the beach is very much in focus. The glass is not on that one, and when I turn the eyeball off on that particular one, we can see that the glass is in focus here and the beach is out of focus. Now this is also referred to as focus stacking, and it's a technique that I use quite a bit for insect photography, because you have a very shallow depth of field, and this allows you to extend that depth of field, and that is really beneficial when you're working in the macro world. So before we start, I'm going to go ahead and go up to File and click on File here and go ahead and Save As. And again, from the start here, I'm going to save as Working. And click Save. Now what we want to do is we want to highlight both of these the glass and the beach. You want to make sure that both those are highlighted, and come up here to Edit and drop down to Auto Align Layers. Now what this is going to do is this is going to align the two layers. Now perspective is fine. I always go with auto seems to work for me, so I'm going to click on that and make sure that vignetting remove is off and geometric distortion is off. You shouldn't have any of those in there. Click OK. And what this does is that now when I turn off and on the eyeball, you see that everything stays in one spot. So if I put Command Z, you see that when I turn off and on the eyeball, that things move around. So I'm going to go up to Edit and redo Auto Align Layers. So again, click on and off the eyeball, everything is lined up. So once this is all lined up now, I'm going to go on up to, come on down to Auto Blend Layers. Right below the Auto Align Layers is Auto Blend Layers. Click on that and bring this out here where you can see it. And I have a panoramic and I have a stack images on this. And so I want the stacked image, and that's going to basically pick the focused areas of the image and blend them together. Content aware fill, we don't need that. Seamless tones and colors, we do want that. And I'm going to click OK. And so now it's selecting both these layers, and it's going to make an image now. If you look at it, you see that we have the beaches in focus and the glasses in focus. Now, if we go ahead and we turn this one off, turn that eyeball off, you see what parts it's taken out of here that are in focus and blended with this image, and what parts that are out of focus here and blended with the image above it. So if you want, you can go ahead and flatten the image, but right now we're just going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to go up to File, Save As. In this case, I'm just going to make it a JPEG image, so that's a little bit smaller format, and click Save. And 8 as in high, that's good. Talked about that before. And there you have this section. Now we're going to go on to removing objects using content aware fill. Alright, so we're going to play around with the content aware fill in Photoshop a little bit more, and we're going to use it to remove something from an image. So I'm going to go down the bridge here, and this is the image that we're going to work with, this koi pond. You can see that we have a rock here. We want to try and get rid of that and sort of make it look like this koi, this removal here. Now you can see that on this one we do have a little bit of a fish up there, so we'll try and do ours a little better if we can. So I'll start with this. I'm going to double click on this to open it in Photoshop. And once you're in Photoshop, the first thing again you always want to do is go ahead and save as, and we'll save it as a working copy again. So you want to use your lasso tool, and the lasso tool is located in this area here. Sometimes you might have the polygonal showing, but right now we just want this lasso tool here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to run this lasso right around this little feature here. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and feather out a little bit, about 25 pixels for feather. And make sure the anti-alias is still on. That's going to give you a little bit cleaner line. and the original one is fine. This is add to, this subtract from, this combine, but right now just keep it on the first one is what it should be on. And I'm going to drag this around. Now you don't have to be precise 100%, but every little bit's going to help. And coming around to the end there and letting it go. So now I have my outline here. And again, it can be approximate. So now I'm going to go ahead and select, I'm going to edit. And I'm going to come down here to Content Aware Fill and click on that. Okay, so once we're in this, we have the working area here, and that's this area right all in here. And then we have a preview over here showing what the image looks like. And you notice right now we have some green leaves here on the image, and we have some of the rocks still showing. So we want to get rid of that. So what the Content Aware Fill is doing is it's using all of this area that's in green with this green overlay to select stuff out of this image, and so that's why we're getting some of the leaves and stuff. So what we want to do is you want to paint those leaves and get rid of them. Now you can use your left and right brackets, which is by the P's, the square brackets, and you can, by pressing them, you can make your brush a little larger. So by clicking my right and left bracket, I can make it larger and smaller, and I want to get it up to about 700, about that big. Okay, so with my brush in the subtraction mode, I'm just going to left click my mouse and drag it across the image. And you see that that green starts to disappear. And as I get rid of all of that foliage up there, it subtracts it from the rendering over here on the other side. And I'm going to come down here and across the fountain too. And what's going to happen is this image over here is going to render out. It's going to go ahead and show you exactly what you have. So as you can see, it doesn't look 100%. We got a little bit of that rock showing right over here. So I'm going to click on the lasso tool up here, and I'm going to put the lasso tool on subtract. And what I'm going to do, actually I want to put it on add, because I want to go out across this rock a little bit and add to that lasso. And you see that that's coming across there. And now put that out a little bit more to add to that. And you see that that rock part over here has disappeared and gone away. Now we're still coming up into there, and sometimes it's going to take a couple trial and errors to finish it. But right now we're just going to say that's pretty darn close, and we're going to go ahead and select OK. And here we are back in the image. Because I had the Content Aware Fill set to add to a different layer, we have a background copy layer. And you notice that when I click on and off the eyeball, that my little hill comes in. Now I still have my selection around the tool, and I just press Command D to get rid of that selection. Now granted, this doesn't look 100% yet. It would take another couple selections and maybe going back into Content Aware, take another shot at it. But by going back and forth, you would eventually get this to fill out and work for you. So other than that, from here we're going to just save the image, click on File, and just click Save. Okay, now for the final part of the chapter assignment, we're going to adjust perspective on an image. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and open up Bridge, which of course you can open by browsing Bridge. And the Bridge Start here, I'm going to double click on that to open that in Photoshop. So once that becomes open here, you see that we have two layers. We have a train layer and we have a background layer here. Now we want the perspective of the train to match the tracks and make it look like it's riding on the tracks. Notice that the train is a smart object, so that's going to allow us to make adjustments as we see fit. So I'm going to go up to edit here at the very top and click on edit and go down to puppet warp, or perspective warp, I'm sorry. Click on that and you see that we have a smart filter with a perspective warp, and you see that our cursor is changed. So at the bottom here, I'm going to click at this point and drag my mouse up, and you'll see that slowly my wall builds up here. And I apologize how slow this is. And I want to clear about the top of the smokestack there and the bottom of the wheels right down here. So the next one I want to have is I want to be from the front of the cow catcher and bring it on up to this corner right here. And as I get close and let go, it's going to lock into that part right there. So I want to align this shape correctly. So I want to bring this corner, let me close that out. I want to bring this corner down towards the caboose while staying above my smokestack here. And I'll bring this corner in to the back of the caboose as close as I can there. Let me bring this out just a tiny bit. And what I want to do is I want to make it appear like there's a wall on this side of the train. Now I want to do the same thing on the front. I want to bring this back a little bit and adjust maybe this one down a tiny bit. Now notice that it looks like the train is encapsulated into part of a box is what it looks like. So once I have that there, I'm going to click on warp up at the top here. That's the second part, and you'll have a video. If it's the first time you're doing this, you'll have a little quick video appear right here showing you how to do that. And these lines here help adjust, automatically straighten up the lines in the train, which is what that did. So it straightened up the box and the train itself. So now all that's left is we want to adjust the train down onto the track, and you do that by clicking on one of these dots and bringing it down. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my wheels are touching on the track right there. Then from there I can adjust my train. I'm going to pull this out a little bit and maybe bring that down a tiny bit. Adjust this over some, not too much. I want that to look like it's riding on the track. And when you look at the train, you can see that it is pretty much the perspective that you want. Once you're happy with that, you keep adjusting. But the main thing is to concentrate on these wheels here. Make sure these wheels are touching along the track. That gives us a proper perspective. So I think, let me move this one back just a tiny bit and see how that looks. And that looks good to me. So once this is all done, we click on the check mark right at the top here. That finishes up our train. We have our train on our track now. It looks like it belongs there. You can see that this perspective matches the track and looks like the train's sitting on it now instead of floating above it like it did before. And even though the train was shot at a little bit different angle than the track was, let me just bring that back for you. You can see that now the train looks like it was both shot at the same angle as this track layout is right here. Once that's done, go ahead and hit File and click to Save As, and click to Save As, and save that in Lesson 5 as working. And click Save. And so that is the last part of Chapter 5 on quick fixes. So you can see that we've done a lot of things. We've improved a snapshot of a lady, adjusted some of her features, and blurred out a background on one image. We created a panoramic. We filled empty areas in that panoramic and adjusted that. Corrected the image distortion that we had and extended the depth of field on our glass on the rail. and remove the object using content aware fill, and then finally adjust the perspective on an image in our last part. So that wraps up chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed this. Please do come back for chapter 6 on masks and channels.